4 months after reserving the order on the pleas challenging the constitutionality of the Waqf Amendment Act 2025, the Supreme Court today, via an interim order, refused to stay very crucial parts of the Waqf Amendment Act 2025, noting that the presumption is always in favor of the constitutionality of a statute. However, certain sections in the amendment law of 2025 have been stayed on technical grounds until petitions challenging the amendment's validity are decided. Hello and welcome to ThePrint's Instant Analysis. I am Ruchi Bhattar, and in this video I will be telling you about the top court's interim order on the 2025 law. The Waqf law governs properties that are dedicated for religious, charitable or community use by Muslims. Think of mosques, dargahs, graveyards or community kitchens. The 2025 amendment made several big changes, including a rule that only someone who has been a practicing Muslim for at least 5 years can dedicate property as waqf. The law gave the district collector the power to decide whether the disputed property should be treated as waqf. The 2025 law also allowed non-Muslims to serve as CEOs or members of the Waqf board and mandated registration of Waqf properties with stricter timelines. Now, what did the Supreme Court say on Monday? Let's break down. The bench led by Chief Justice Gavai and Justice Augustine George Masih on Monday said the entire act is not arbitrary on the face of it, but certain provisions were stayed. On the 5-year rule for Muslims, the court stayed the requirement that only someone who has been a Muslim for at least 5 years can dedicate property as waqf until state rules are framed for examining whether a person is a practicing Muslim or not. Without any such rule or mechanism, the provision will lead to an arbitrary exercise of power, the court said. About the collector's power over waqf disputes, the bench stayed the provisions which permits the necessary corrections to be made in the revenue records after conclusion of an inquiry and held that the provision enabling the state government to direct the board to make appropriate corrections in the revenue records on receipt of the report are prima facie arbitrary. The court held that while the inquiry should happen by the revenue officers, the change in the revenue record shall only be made by the tribunal following the adjudicatory process. It held that an executive through the office of a district collector cannot be given sweeping authority which would affect the rights of the citizens. Now let me tell you the provisions that were not stayed by the Supreme Court today. About non-Muslims in Waqf board, the court didn't stay this amendment but clarified that there can't be more than 3 non-Muslims on the state Waqf board and not more than 4 non-Muslims on the central Waqf councils. The court did not interfere with the provision allowing a non-Muslim to be the CEO of the state Waqf board. The court also did not stay the provisions that invalidate waqfs over protected monuments or ASI monuments. If a monument is stated protected, waqf will be void. The concept of waqf by user, which means that if a property like a mosque, dargah, graveyard or a community kitchen has been used by the Muslim community for religious purposes for a long time, it can be officially considered as waqf property even if there are no legal papers or documents to prove ownership. The 2025 amendment had abolished this concept of waqf by user, and the Supreme Court has not interfered with it in its Monday order. Next, the court did not stay the clause applying the Limitation Act to the Waqf Acts or the Waqf-related claims. The Limitation Act applies to Waqf claims under the new amendment, and for now, parties will need to consider limitations in any Waqf-related disputes. This is an interim order, a temporary direction issued by the Supreme Court. The court's final judgment settling the disputes and the issues on merits and binding parties with finality is awaited. The stay is prima facie, it's temporary until final arguments on the law's validity are heard. That's all for this edition of Instant Analysis. Thank you for watching.